Hey everybody, welcome back to Metal Mill 52 Workshop. My name is Bill, this is my shop. This is a follow-up video to a problem video that I posted about the power feed on my lathe. I love this lathe. It's a Grizzly G4003G lathe. I bought it about 12 years ago and have been very pleased with it, very few problems. But this was just an oddball problem that cropped up that I didn't know what was causing it. If you'll stay tuned for the video, this will probably be like a 20-minute video, I guess, when I put all the pieces together. And you'll see, at the very least, you'll see some interesting footage of taking this assembly apart. So if you have a problem with yours, and a few of you have contacted me asking for advice and information about it, so this video should be helpful for you. I've got it finally, it's working again properly, so you'll see what that looks like in here. I hope this is useful to you. If, as always, please ask any questions. I'll do my best to answer them. And if you enjoy the video, don't have any questions, please give me a thumbs up. It always provides me encouragement, and I love to see the people that are watching the videos and making comments and asking questions. So thanks again, everybody. Happy New Year to you. We'll see you soon. Well, it's a gorgeous day. It's New Year's Day. It's sunny outside. A little cool where I live, but not bad at all. And I came out to do a video. I was going to try to fix a problem with the sticking power feed here. If you're familiar with my channel, you've seen me do a problem looking for a solution video about the power feed. I had a problem where it would not engage, and I just tried it now, and now it's engaging again. So let me just show you what I mean. So here's the lever that you use to turn the lathe on. All right, and then putting the handle, I'll just demonstrate how the power feed works. Engage it this way with the handle up. You can see that wheel turning clockwise. The carriage is moving very slowly to the right, which is a very handy feature with the power feed is for machining a really smooth surface. And now I can turn it off. Now let's put the handle down, and that controls the cross slide going forward and aft. And it's a little tricky, a little sticky, but it's working now. That's kind of amazing. So the good news is apparently nothing's broken that I had to fix. Do not know why that it was broken before and would not work. So I thought, since I'm out here, I'll show you what my plan was, to remove these pins here and take a look inside the box and see if I could see if there was something, maybe a piece of swarf that was jamming it or something like that. Be a good chance for me to I'll clean up the lathe. So the next time you see me, I'll have some gloves on just to keep my hands clean as I scrub some of the mess off of there. And when I finish, I'll fill it up. I noticed that the oil is very low in the crankcase, so to speak, there. So let me stop the video now, and I'm going to mount the camera, and I'll probably just video while I take those pins out, and we can look inside that control housing there. Just one more thing, I did notice, I studied the manual last night, and there's a roll pin here that I could tap out if I needed to remove the handle, but that's not the case at this time. There's also a screw on the other side, a screw and a large washer. I had played around with that before to see if that made any difference when I was first having the problem, and it did not. Or at least I was not able to come up with a solution. So very curious. One more thing, I'm also going to do not only turn the power off to the lathe, but I learned the lesson the hard way. Basically, whenever I do anything on the lathe, I will unplug it, disconnect the power completely. While I'm babbling, I'll explain why. I had replaced this lamp here. This is the new halogen version. And originally the lathe had on it an incandescent one, and I wanted to replace it. And when I went to do that, I had the power on, and a couple of the wires to the lamp touched, and I realized the hard way that there was no fuse protecting the circuit. That's why I put in a little automobile fuse in here, a little inline fuse, because when I say the hard way, what happened was there's a giant capacitor, I guess it's a transformer inside the case in the back, and man, I'd let the smoke out, as they say. It just burned up, so that was like $100 repair or more. So word to the wise, definitely disconnect the power before you do anything on your lathe. I cleaned up the lathe a little bit. It's still not very clean, but cleaner than it was. And I just took this plate off, just like I thought. There were just 3 little aluminum drive screws that hold it on. They basically are just pounded in there. I've got some spares in my my toolkit from a previous project. I sure hope they're the right size. So now we can see that the whole assembly is held on with some other hex screws, and what I want to do now, hex screws, socket head, cap screws I should say. I'd like to take this off and take a look at it, but on the other hand, I really don't want to mess up something that's not broken. And as you can see, it's working now, so really torn about this. It's so strange that it wasn't. It's not working in all circumstances, so that is kind of, I guess I'll take it off, because you know the last thing you want to be doing is be in the middle of a project and have something not work. I did notice in the schematic that there's a ball and detent thing that's part of this assembly, and I think that might be part of the problem. I don't really know, so I'll go ahead and take these screws off and see what we see. I've got all 3 of the screws removed. It took no effort at all. They're pretty long, like 2-inch long socket head cap screws. So let's see if this box will come off now. Maybe, maybe not. I'm thinking I may have to remove this, because it probably has a little cam action inside there. It's so weird how it's working fine now. Generally. Okay, let's try taking this screw out here. I'll turn the camera off, because unless it comes right out, it's pretty loose. Let's see. It's at a tight, odd angle. I'm going to turn the camera off for a second, and well, wait a minute, maybe not. What the feeling is kind of like a cam action, like in a locking tailstock. I think that's the same kind of principle of physics that we're dealing with here. There we go. Okay, so there's it's a short little screw and washer. Let's see if that lets us take the box or the handle out. Or the box off. I really don't want to take the whole apron apart if I don't have to. It definitely doesn't want to come off when it's actuated, like engaged. There we go. Alright, with it engaged in the down position, I was able to slide this handle and gear out. I don't know if you can see that or not. Hopefully it shows up. So there's a splined shaft. Well, that's good. Nothing's broken on there. Looks like a little evidence of grease on it, so I'll have to re-grease it when I put it back together. Let's see if this comes off now. Yep. Okay. Cool. Okay, there's our ball bearing, and there's the spring. I really have a feeling that part of the problem may have been that. So what I'm going to do now, I'll turn the camera off. There's it's like a worm gear here. Can't imagine that it would be worn out because I really don't use this feature very often, but I do see a little piece of swarf in there. And I think that could have been, let me see if I can get it to, yeah. If you can see that, I don't know if that'll show up or not, but a little piece of swarf about as big as a fingernail right there. That possibly could have jammed up the works. So what I've got, I'm going to check the diameter of that ball bearing, and I'll clean this all up, check the diameter of the ball bearing, and see if I've got another one that I could use to replace that, and see if I can put it all together. It looks like the ball bearing goes in these little detents right here, so that'll be, I'm sure it'll be quite fiddly putting that putting that back together. But luckily I've built a bunch of machinery. The pillar tool uses a spring-loaded ball bearing like that for a little detent, so I think I could probably get it back together. So we'll see. Alright, I'm going to turn the camera off, clean everything, and see if I can reassemble. Alright, several interesting observations. The stock or standard ball bearing that goes in that hole, I mic'd it, and it's not a standard English size, but it looks like it's just under 6 millimeters. So about 235 thou. I do not have a replacement for that. I do have a 3/16 inch stainless steel ball, which mics out at just under 5 millimeters. And let me show you the fit. The smaller 3/16 inch stainless steel ball fits nicely in the little detent pockets on the handle, and I don't know if that would be smoother or harder in operation, but I'm thinking of trying an experiment because it was pretty easy to take apart. I could put some grease on this, put the 3/16 inch ball in, and if it's not it doesn't help it, then I can take it apart and put the 6 millimeter ball back in. The other thing I wanted to show that would have made it a little easier to take everything apart, I noticed there's a screw, as I mentioned kind of in the intro, there's a screw here which pushes up on the spring where the ball goes. So that'll make it a lot easier to put this thing back together. I can back the screw off and put the ball in there, slide the handle back in, and then tighten this up to engage the ball in the detent. So we'll give it a try. I'm going to clean things and reassemble, and we'll see how it works with a smaller ball, and if not, we'll take it apart and put the stock ball back in. I wanted to show what I was talking about with the sort of a bent flange here. I don't know if this will show up or not. No, not with my hand there. But right here, it was very thin. It's kind of half of a thread form, and I don't know if they meant to do that, but it looks dinged up. Let me show a top view here, perhaps. I don't know. Anyway, it's really noticeable in person how this is kind of caved in a little bit. So I'm going to take a screwdriver and just carefully pry that out, and we'll see if that helps too. Alright, hopefully you can see I've straightened this out. I used a long-handled screwdriver, or a long thin stem like that. Got it pried out. I didn't want to break it off, so I was pretty gentle with the prying action, and then I used some sandpaper to kind of deburr it a little bit. Don't know if it had anything to do with the problem, but might as well make it a little nicer while we're at it. The next thing will be to put it all back together. Alright, I've got it put back together with the small ball bearing in there, and the somewhat good news, it was easy to put back together, and it works fine with the cross-feed lever this way, which would be for the back and forth that way, but it is not at all wanting to engage for the Z-axis travel. I'm going to try one more thing before I take the ball bearing, take it all apart, because I'm kind of perplexed why it's not. I mean, I wouldn't think the ball bearing would have that much to do with it, but see, it doesn't want to move at all now, which that's very bad. At least it would move before. It's just locked. moves that way. Yeah, definitely is not right yet. So let me take it apart. I'm going to cut the video off. I'll take it apart, try to put the proper size ball bearing in there, and hopefully that'll resolve it. We'll see. Actually, I think I've figured out what the problem is. I just wanted to point out something. I don't think it has to do with the ball at all, because I took the set screw out and the spring and then the small ball, and I have the larger one handy to put back in. But I think what it had to do was I pulled that shaft out when I went to fix that Acme thread on there, and I think that the shaft position is what's locking it, and so I need to take this assembly back off and then put the shaft back in a neutral position and reassemble it. So I'm going to do that now. I'll turn the camera off again while I sort that out. Alright, this could be the very kind of the best part of this video, very critical information here. What I had done when I was fixing the Acme thread, I had pulled the shaft all the way out, and I noticed, just playing with it, I took the assembly back off. No big deal to take it off, but for this, if the shaft is pushed all the way in, it's basically locked here. And so I think what I want to do is reassemble it in a neutral position, because when the handle is neutral, you don't want anything to impair the movement of the carriage. So this is a neutral. I think I had it pulled out too far, or maybe it was pushed in. Maybe I pushed it back in when I was reassembling it. So anyway, I pulled it out just about 1/4 of an inch. It's still locked. Pull it out. Let me move this back and forth. Okay. I guess pulled out all the way is how you want it to be, because that seems to be neutral. So I'm going to try to carefully keep this thing all the way pulled out while I reassemble everything. We'll see how that works. Alright, I thought I'd be a little more useful and try to video some of the reassembly. So I've got the box back on, and the carriage does move easily back and forth. I have the 6mm ball bearing in there, the standard one. So I'm going to try to reassemble this now. I do have the bottom screws slacked off. Okay, that's interesting. Well, when I put the handle in, it's the splines on that handle are engaging the worm gear a little bit, and the Acme threaded worm gear, and I could feel the shaft moved a little. But let's see if that makes a difference. I'm going to hold this in with my hand. Yeah, see, it's locked now. So that does make a huge difference, is how the handle is, and the Acme gear and that shaft in there. So let's try taking it out again. This is tricky. This is interesting, but tricky. Slide that out. There goes the ball. Back here. Put all the pieces together. Okay, let's go ahead and take this off. Wonder if that's threaded. I may have to investigate putting something, putting a screw in there to hold it in position. Okay, so that's clear. So what's tricky is you have to lift the shaft up a little bit to get this started inside the carriage. And that's what I'm concerned about, is like when I do it, it pushes that shaft back. Let's see. Okay, haven't pushed it back so far. Let's see if we can get lucky maybe. Put the standard ball bearing back in. Press it down. Take a turn off of that. As you can probably see, I've got all this oiled up nicely with some, I just used some Vectra 2. Okay. I felt the shaft had pulled out a little bit. Now let's see. Alright, it moves that way. That's all good. Let's try putting the screws back in here and see if that, hopefully that will not lock the, it won't change that position of that worm gear too much. Interesting design. I don't know about you, but I mean, hopefully this is interesting. To me, I'm completely fascinated by these mechanical designs like this, even though it is frustrating when you're trying to put something back together and it doesn't go just right. It's still a great way to not lose your temper, is to just start thinking about the genius of the people that designed this, and you know, how it works and all fits together okay. Alright, so now the box is tight. Let's see. Aggravating. Alright, it wants to go that way, which kind of makes me think that the shaft is just slightly misaligned. Yep. Dang it. Alright. It doesn't want to go down at all. Yeah. So the shaft is a little misaligned, and that's what's causing the problem there. So let us do this. I'm going to take this apart again. I'm going to see if I can I think the end of that hole might be threaded for a screw. If I can put a long screw in there, then I can adjust the shaft while I put this together. Yep. It wants to go there. So it's pretty close, but I'm going to turn the camera back off. I'll fiddle with it again, bring you back when I make another breakthrough. Okay, I found a 632 screw that feeds in there. I'm sure that's supposed to be metric, but this fit in okay, and I just put it in just enough to keep a hold on that shaft to keep it from going in. So if it's pulled out all the way, it's the thing is loose. Also, I was thinking about if there's another way to lock this down, maybe with threading. No, I guess not. See, if it's pushed in, it's locked all the way out. It's definitely unlocked. See if I could engage the half nut, but guess not. Alright, we'll try to keep it pulled out and put it back together one more time. I'm going to turn the camera off for this, and I'm going to put the standard size ball bearing in there too. Alright, that did the trick. I was able to hold the shaft out long enough, and now that I think about it, that does look proper, that shaft should be almost all the way out. So the standard ball bearing is in there. I'm going to tighten up the screw on the bottom just a little bit. Let's try to put these screws back in the housing, and hope, fingers crossed, that this will solve the problem. It sounded right going back together, if you know what I mean, with little machine clicks and clunks and stuff. It sounded good, and the good thing is it's all oiled up inside there too, so let's just hope for the best. So the housing's back on, standard size ball bearing inside. I have not yet put the little retaining screw and washer on the back side yet. I'll do that in a second. And I haven't tightened up the detent. Let me go ahead and tighten that up just a wee bit, just to see. I'm just gonna put this screw in so it's flush. Seems like the handle's in the right spot. Yeah. want to put the ball in there too tightly. Okay, let's flush. Ah, come on. Alright, I'll engage that way. Come on, thing. Why is it not? This is frustrating. I'm going to slacken off the ball a little bit, see if that makes any difference. Take a turn off of the tension. That is strange. It is not wanting to go. Yeah, something's definitely not right in the gears there. Don't know what it is, of course. Okay, we can take it apart one more time, but you know, it's funny that something makes me think that something in the gearing in the apron is out of whack because of the half nut won't engage. So I guess I need to put that into my little list of things to check when I put it all back together. I'll cut the camera off and play with it and hope bring you back in a minute. Alright, this is interesting. As you can see, I'm backing the spline shaft out, and I was fiddling with the arrangement here, and at this point with the Acme gear, it's in about 1/4 of an inch, and I have good motion here, and the lock nut will engage too. So I think that's probably the right position for the Acme gear to be. So I'm going to take these screws out, loosen them up, and see if we can't reinsert the handle with the handle level excuse me, with the worm gear and everything else in this position, if that makes any sense. Makes sense to me. Okay, so the body is loose. I need to tilt it so that I can get the handle level. There we go. Try to take it out without taking it out all the way so I don't drop the ball bearing out. Okay. There goes the ball bearing. You know what? Let's just, alright, see if I can put that back in. Press it down. What I'm doing now is I'm going to back off that set screw that holds the ball bearing in place. And just took it out all the way. Alright. Maybe we can just put it in when we're all done. So hopefully I've got everything in the right spot. Slide this all back together. Let's tighten these up. I'm not going to tighten them up super tight just to get them in there. I'm not sure that shaft is in the right spot or not, but come on. Alright, so the box is in, handle's in. We don't have the spring detent and ball bearing in or not. It's not in right now. But let's see. Handle's in the neutral position. Yay, we can move the chassis back and forth, carriage back and forth. Half nut engages. So I'm thinking we're in generally the right area. Let's go ahead and I'm going to keep this all just like it is and without messing up too much. I'm going to turn the camera off because these segments go long. But what I'm going to do is put the ball bearing back in. I'll put the standard size ball bearing back in, put the set screw that holds it in place in, and put the lock washer, or excuse me, the washer and screw for the handle and the opposite side too, and see if, well, I'll bring you back and we'll see if that works. Alright folks, I think that been out here all afternoon and I think I've got it solved. It's just the critical issue is the shaft, the worm gear, where it's located, how far it's engaged with the gears. I'm sure it would become eminently clear if I was to take the apron off and look at the gears that are on the back side of there. But long story short, I just played around with the dimension of that where that shaft is located, and I finally was able to get it to the point, as you can see, when we have this when it lowered so that this travel is engaged along that axis, the shaft is almost all the way out, and neutral it's in about 3/16 of an inch, and then in for the z-axis feed, or with the handle up, it's in roughly about a 1/2 inch dimension right in here. So hallelujah, it all works. The half nut works too, and engages and disengages okay. So all I need to do, I need to put on the retaining screw and washer on the opposite side, and then see if I've got some riv nuts, some drive screws to put the little trim plate back in place. If not, it's not a big deal. I will put a squirt of oil, some Vectra 2 whey oil in there before I put the thing back together, but I'll bring you back when we have it all set back together again. Hey everybody, wrapping it up here. I got the cover reinstalled. I did not have the size of riv nuts or drive screws. These things are about 72 thou, a little bit too small. I tried 256 screws to see if that would work, but I'd have to tap the cast iron. So if I ever have to take it out, I may try the 256. But what I ended up doing, just to hold the plate on now, I used some 172 screws with a little bit of crazy glue, and it seems to be holding fine. So if that holds good, then I'll be all right for a while. I will fill it up with the hydraulic fluid before I put everything away, but I think I'll declare a victory on this project. And thanks again to Rustinox, aka Michelle, for a good friend on the YouTube machinist, for encouraging me to go ahead and tackle this. I'll never forget your comment there after I've posted the original problem. You're like, hey, you can fix that. I'm like, you know what? He's probably right. So hopefully it is fixed. Thanks again, everybody. As you can see, it's getting cooler out here. I got the heater on and the sun's going down. I'm all bundled up to stay warm. So hope you have a great Happy New Year. I'll go ahead and publish this thing, and we'll get to it when I get a chance. We'll start publishing the next project. Thank you all. Take care.